All right, and I'll just let everybody know the usual stuff. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm no expert. This is just kind of my side hobby. So I'm hoping I can show somebody out there something that helps them out. I just thought I'd look at BTC first, and then we'll kind of go through some other things. And some people did ask me to provide a donation link or a donation BTC address, so it's down at the bottom if anybody wants it. But I don't care. I mean, I'm not looking to make any money off this. It's just a little hobby. So what we're looking at with BTC, from my perspective anyway, what I like to do when I start looking at things is, of course, you want to go out as far as you can. I mean, with something as historical as BTC, you could go even to the weekly, but I kind of like to start with the daily. And we already know what this is about. We've seen a bunch of people post about it, how where is it at? How we always have these little corrections, 30-40%. Previous one was 31. This one, yeah, we're at about 26%. And that's why a lot of people think we're still going down. But that doesn't necessarily mean we are, because these type of corrections, they're pretty random. I mean, they don't have a set. You can't just say, oh, it's going to be 30%. Oh, it's going to be 40%. It doesn't work that way. Sometimes it hits that mark. Sometimes it doesn't. So one thing you can do, here, let me go back down to the 4 hour, is you want to start with something really basic, like looking at support levels, looking at resistance levels. And nearly all of us know how to do this, but we'll just go through them real quick. What I do is, it's important to always look left, of course. That's one of the basic rules. I mean, you could zoom in real close like this, yeah. But what is this going to tell you? You can't figure anything from that. So you want to zoom out a little bit. And you want to look at, I mean, you could start as something as simple as this and just say, okay, we know that it's hitting resistance right here, or support, sorry, right here. So let's just go ahead and draw a line. And you can see this touches, what you want to look for is where it turned from support to resistance and broke through, and then what happened to it when it came back down. So we had resistance here, broke through, turned into support, came up, tested support one more time, and then it went up. And you'll see that a lot. I know we've probably got some people that are going to be watching this that they may not have a lot of experience, so I'm kind of explaining these basic elements a little bit more. And then we fell back through. But the interesting thing about this is, even if you fall through these support lines, it doesn't mean that you're going to keep going down. We see this all the time. Another real good example of this is something we saw with XRP. And XRP is a coin that does it a lot. It'll extend past those lines. So where was that? The big dip. Yeah, here it is right here. So this was back, what, December 30th, where everybody was all worried about it. We all thought it was going to be about right here that it would stop, because you can see, I mean, that looked like a real good support line at one time. And it ended up being that way, actually. It's just that it extended down almost like a fake out, and it got a bunch of people to sell because of that. Once it fell through that line, that was it. A lot of people got scared off. And so we came back up and kind of hugged it for a while and went back up. So that's a really good example of what that might look like. So let's see here. Let's go to another way that you can kind of tell where things are headed. We know that this right here, even though it looks bearish, and of course it is, that looks like it's not good, that things are going to continue that way. Say if you did like this, let's just say this is what you saw, this is where we were currently. I mean, you'd think, wow, we may be coming all the way down to, I don't know, somewhere in here. I mean, that would be most people's first thought. But that's that fear, that's that manipulation in each coin that either the whales are causing or the Fed printing money is causing, whatever it may be. But it turns out, you know, we came back up. Really, I see this as a bullish pattern. When I see this, I get excited because I know if I can time something down here, then there's a pretty good chance I'm going to make some money coming back up. And we've seen like Bo Polney or other people on their charts, they'll show how usually within these structures or within these channels, you'll see it bounce 5 times. So I think this is what, 1, 2, 3, 4. Sometimes it'll go ahead and break out right there, but it came down one more time. And you could count it different if you wanted to. You could say, okay, from the top, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it exited. That's a good way to look at it. And then here's one more trend line that I like to draw. I kind of like to see the longer term direction. I mean, you could call this the bottom channel here if you wanted to. And, you know, we extended past it a little bit, that's fine. And then here's your other channel. And this is just roughly, it's not going to be exact. But we can see how we're bouncing in between that. And one of the best rules of investing is, whether it's stocks or cryptos, whatever, you want to be buying down here. I mean, even if it fell through, you could set your stop down here if you wanted to. That's fine. But if you're talking about risk reward, here's your low risk area. And then here's where your high reward ends up, is way up here. You know, if you're willing to be patient, we know that eventually, especially in a bull run, you're going to get back up there. So, you know, just be patient with your trades and you'll be fine. I do use a couple of different indicators. This one, I actually bought this one here in the middle. That's that, it's that one CryptoFace uses. It's called Market Cipher. And you don't have to have this, it's not necessary. I just use it as an extra layer of confidence on my entries. But there is one that I ran across. I wonder if I can, yeah, let me close this one real quick. I ran across this one down here today, and it's called Wolfpack ID. All you got to do is go to indicators, type in Wolfpack, yeah. So type in Wolfpack and it'll pop up there. Just double click it and it'll show up. So the cool thing about this one is, you know, the money flow is a big part of all of this. So anytime this is red, that means money is exiting the crypto. Anytime it's green, it's entering. And let me bring back that other one real quick because I want to show one more thing. I think it's this one. Okay. I don't know if y'all can see this. So right here where this is green, let me get a marker here. Right here, this whole area is green. Hey, UTH. Sorry, I wasn't looking at the chat. Can everybody see that where it's green right there? And then there's a red one. There's kind of a red one here. You can't really see it very well. But of course, this is bullish. You know, we got a lot of money flow coming in. And this is where we get more bearish, whether it's short or long term. I really need to zoom in on that. Let me see. I mean, usually there's a lot more red there that you can see. You can kind of go back here. Yeah, here's one way back here. That's a lot easier to see. So this is called money flow. And if you're a long investor, then of course what you're looking for is the, let me zoom in again. I'll just use a trend line to show this. So what we're looking for is where it goes from this red, so kind of right in this area. It's hard to see. So right in this area right here, what's happening is we're getting a kind of like a curve. You know, they talk about riding the wave. Almost said widening the wave. And so you're going down, you're coming up. You're just kind of doing a little S curve type thing there. But right when this exits the weak money flow where people are selling off and it goes into this green, that's kind of what I'm looking for this particular indicator. And so it's basically the same thing here. What I wanted to highlight with this was what I like about it. And we're on the 4-hour chart, by the way, for BTC. So this is pretty cool here. You can take these trend lines and do like this, because you can see that money flow is starting to slowly exit. But then if you go back down here, I mean, typically you'd say, yeah, that's bad. I should probably consider getting out soon. But you can come back here and say, okay, it looks like it's kind of stagnant in a way. You know, they're playing tug of war. So you got people selling, you got people buying, and we're creating that. Let me get rid of this. I want to show this triangle that we're looking at now up here. And so on a smaller time frame, we're creating this triangle here. And there's no guarantee which way we're going to go here. I see a lot of people scared, you know, we're going to go down, it's going to crash. I don't believe that it is. I think we're about to go up. Or BTC is just going to go sideways and all the altcoins are going to get a chance to keep moving up a little bit. And I think they do need to catch up. You know, the way it works in my mind is BTC goes up for a while, and then you get a lot of new money that comes into the market, which we talk about the market cap all the time. And then once BTC slows down, you see people take money out. Everybody wants to gamble. They want to be in the game. They're not going to leave their money on the sideline too long. And so they'll take the money and put it into altcoins. Let me see. I'll show you UTH. So if you're using TradingView, this is how you get it. You go to indicators at the top there. It's like right on that top bar. And then just type in Wolfpack. I think it's the only one named that. The cool thing about TradingView is there's a lot of people that they create these indicators that people can use, and maybe the other site doesn't have that kind of functionality. Yeah, so that is kind of the strategy I use. And then from here, what I would do is, I mean, this is a pretty good indication that we're just waiting to see what happens, whether we go up or down from this point. It'll make a decision here in a couple of days, I would imagine. I mean, right here, it still has some room to go, so maybe it'll wait till it hits that. But up here in this channel, or in this triangle, it looks like it has not much more time to make a decision. So the other thing I'll use is RSI. Let me bring that up. And same thing, just go up here into indicators, type in RSI, and it will be called Relative Strength Index. You don't have to get any of the special ones, the regular one's fine. And we'll just go over that real quick. Kind of the same idea, really, with Wolfpack, except you're not talking about money flow. With RSI, you're talking about the momentum of the coin or the stock, whatever you may be looking at. And so there's kind of a midline here, even though it doesn't show it. It's right about in the 50 area. So anything under 50 is considered, it's not doing too well. It's kind of weak. Might be in a short-term downtrend. And then anything above it's bullish. And what I will do is I'll start at these larger time frames, 4-hour, daily, sometimes weekly. And I'll look and I'll say, okay, we're kind of at the midline, so if this thing pops over, then it's pretty bullish. But what I like to do is draw trend lines on this as well. And you can go back a little ways. Usually you want one that spikes down pretty hard like that, and then just kind of do your trend line like that. And see if you can find a trend. You're not always going to be able to find one. Here, let me get rid of that one. I'll show you a good example that I see right here. See this one right here where it touches all of these peaks. And then it even touches this one right here as well on the 28th of January. And so what happens is it eventually breaks through it right here on February 6th. And let's see what happened up here. I mean, it had a pretty good spike not long after that. So you got this downward channel that was being formed. You could probably take this one right here and say, okay, here's kind of the channel right here. And anytime you have an expanding channel where the mouth gets bigger right here, so it's a little bit smaller on this end, gets bigger here, that's usually bullish, because you can see what happened was it bounced around in there a little ways, and then once it had that last bounce, it took off. And that's exactly what happened here. You had a good spike there, and then you had a good spike right there. And that always happens. That always happens when you either come off a support or you break through resistance. You get a lot more buyers coming in because they're seeing those same indicators that you're seeing. They're just trying to take advantage of the big movement. So they might be waiting on a breakout or a bounce off support. So that's kind of where you see most of the spikes, and it's hard to time them. I mean, you're not going to time them every time. A lot of us are just long-term traders, and the spikes are kind of like the cherry on top. That's great. But this kind of gives you an idea why those things happen. And then whoops, I didn't mean to get rid of that. Okay, so the next indicator, well, I guess I should ask, does anybody have any questions on that here in the Twitch chat? Somebody might have something they want to ask on that. And if not, we'll just go on to the MACD indicator, because that's one more you might want to look at. And then it's just MACD. And this is the kind of the same idea. It's an indicator that shows the strength of the coin, whether it's bullish or bearish. Anything over the zero line right here. Where's it at? Yeah, I mean, this one really is a zero line. It's like right on the zero. That's what you're looking for. If it's over, it's causing these green areas here. That's bullish. Down here where it's red is bearish. But what you're looking for is the crossover. And when I'm looking at things, I try to look through coins really, really quick just to find opportunities. And so I'll fly through these as fast as I can. And I'll fly through every different time frame as well. So let's say if I was looking at Bitcoin one day, which I never do. I don't like to invest in Bitcoin really. It's already pretty high, and it's hard to make unless you're leveraged, it's hard to make a good gain off of it. But you can see right here, anytime you're low like this, just like with support, if you're way down under, we know it always has to rubber band back up at some point. So try to grab you an entry way down here, and then when this blue crosses the red, then that's a really good sign. And especially, I mean, this is a really good point here, because you can do this exact same thing with the EMA. And I don't know if y'all know what EMA is. That's your moving average or your exponential moving average indicators. And I'm sure you've heard of them. There's like 7-day. It tracks the average price of the coin for the last 7 days. And then there's 21, and there's 50, 100, 200. And we know that Bitcoin usually sticks around its 21 EMA. A lot of people use that indicator for it. So my point on that is, whenever you see this separation right here, I'll circle it so it's easier to see. These crossed over making a bullish indicator, but then they started widening here. And the wider you get, the bigger move up you're going to get. So that's a really good indicator that your momentum is likely going to continue. And what you can do is you can just look up at your RSI and say, okay, look at all this down here. All of that mirrors this right here. And so you know that you're already at the bottom with your RSI. Anytime you get near this bottom line, or if you spike through it, same thing. It's eventually going to come back. You know, what goes up must come down, vice versa, that sort of thing. And so you're taking calculated risks. You're keeping your risk low. You know, buy at support, sell at resistance. It's a pretty simple game, but it's hard to master, of course. And I would take an entry, you know, if I was really looking at getting into this and I saw that it was just kind of hanging around down here, I would say, well, you know, the sellers aren't very strong anymore. It might be time to take an entry. And one way that you can verify that to see if you actually want to take an entry is you want to look back up here at the actual chart and look at your pattern and see where it's starting to slow down. There's different things you can do. One thing is you can study candlestick patterns. I mean, it's not necessary. You can still trade without knowing them. But when you get things like, you know, a lot of wicks at the bottom, or what they call a doji. This is actually a doji right here, but it's a bad example because it happened, you know, it didn't happen at our buy area. It really happened kind of right in the middle. So if you see this at the bottom, or if you see that this at the top of either an uptrend or a downtrend, this indicates that there's a lot of indecision. Either the sellers or the buyers are slowing down. So, you know, when things get wicky or something like that happens, then if you're at the bottom, consider taking an entry. Or if you're at the top, think about maybe getting out. And all of this hinges on if you're a short-term trader or you're a long-term trader. So if you're long-term, I wouldn't worry about it as much unless you're actually ready to exit the trade. I'll take a breath here and see if anybody has anything. I know I've been talking nonstop. Yeah, so the UTH is asking, what are the red and blue lines in the MACD? So what that is, let me clear this stuff out of the way. Hopefully y'all can see this pretty easily. I'll just expand this one real quick. I don't really remember what they call this. Let's see. Yeah, so one's the fast and one's the slow. And I think they're based on the actual MA indicator, so the moving average. So this is actually taking, it's just like an EMA or a moving average indicator. I'll show you what those look like. You may already know. So here's an EMA. Let's see what this one is here. That is a 9, so we'll do like a 21 just to show it. So that's this blue line right here. Usually people use them on the actual chart to see what the, you know, just basically, generally speaking, if it's over, it's bullish. If it's under, it's bearish. You know, when you're talking about these EMA lines, but it's kind of, it's hard to explain it that way in such basic terms because there's so many different moving averages that you can look at. There may be a 100 or a 200, which is a much more lagging indicator. And so if you have a 200-day EMA or an MA, you know, one's exponential, one's just a regular moving average, it may be way down here. I'll show you that one real quick, just so you get a better idea of what this is about. So we'll take this one and we'll make it a 200. change the color. Let's see where it puts it at. Yeah, so it's way down here. So we're taking all, I don't know how many days this is, but let's just say we count back from here, and this ends up being 200 days right here, which is really only 25, but let's just say that's actually 200. It's taken all of these days and dividing them by that number, and it just keeps calculating every single day, and it'll move it up or down based on that. And the longer indicator you have, the more days that it is, the more accurate it's going to be to kind of show you what what you can expect out of the coin. So if we're in a bullish momentum, like right now this year, we're going to continue to be bullish, we believe. So it should stay above this line, and if it falls below it, then you might want to kind of look at some other things and say, are we starting to roll over? And what I mean by rolling over is, are we starting to capitulate? People starting to get out of the market. So you may see something like, get rid of some of this stuff. Let's just say if we were rolling over right now, and this was in October later this year, you may see something like this. And it'll just, this one fell through, yeah, right here, but it came right back up. But you may, once this run is over, you may see something like that. It'll come up, go down, do like that 3 push that we've talked about before. And this is what I mean by rolling over. It comes over the top and just starts cratering basically. But I don't think we're going to see anything like that anytime soon. I mean, this 200 indicator is a very strong moving average. It's usually not going to extend past that too far. It's always going to come back up unless you're in a bear market or something like that, which we really don't expect till next year, or maybe late this year. And so getting back to the MACD, yeah, that's all that is. These are just basically moving indicators, these two lines. And I can't remember what I said. One is a 12, one is a 26. So the 12 is considered a fast indicator in this case, whereas the 26 is the slow one. So anytime your fast one crosses back over the slow, that's a good sign, and you want to consider taking your position there, unless it's doing something like this where it's just kind of hugging it and going up and down. You need a strong move where it starts to separate here, where you get some distance between the lines. And I would never just use this. That's not the purpose of it. You want to compare it to multiple indicators and the chart and everything, and just kind of take a whole picture. But the purpose of things like this is you want to have a quick way to look and see if you even want to investigate the coin further for an entry or an exit. And that's the way that I use it. These are just quick ways for me to look and say, okay, I mean, I'll give you an example. If I saw this right here, I wouldn't be touching the coin. It's obvious without me even looking up here, it's obvious that the interest in this coin, people wanting to actually buy this coin, is not very good right now. And that actually, I'm glad we talked about that, because that actually brings up a good point. Hey, Ben. Yeah, that actually brings up a good point. And MIA, what are you saying? Check out the dominance. Oh yeah, I need to look at that as well. But this brings up a good point about bullish and bearish divergence. And this is more of an advanced thing. There's plenty of videos online that you can watch about it. What you can look at is, let me see if I can find a good example here. And I'm no expert, by the way. I know I mentioned it at the first of this, but I'm still learning just like you guys. I'm just sharing the knowledge that I've gained so far. We should always continue to learn, whatever it is. So we can see right here that we are definitely going up. I mean, there's no doubt about that. It's heading in an upward direction. But if you're looking here and you're thinking, okay, if it's going up, eventually it is going to come down, so I have to be prepared. Well, what you can do is you can start looking down here at your indicators for signs of a reversal. And of course, people that are wanting to take a short position, they're always looking for this, because we're always looking at the opposite. We want to find a good entry position. And this really isn't a very good example, but this kind of shows some bearish divergence right here. You can see how this RSI, and anytime you get up here, by the way, what is this? This level's about 83 on the RSI on the 4-hour. I would say anytime you get over this line, actually, you have to at least consider that it might be slowing down at some point. I mean, there's times when this goes up to 100 on the RSI, so just because it comes over this line doesn't mean it's going to stop. It could keep going for a long time, because you'll get some that are up here and they'll stay up near 90 and they'll just bounce up here, and you'll see the price of the coin just keep rising. Okay, so when I say bearish divergence, it's kind of a hard thing to explain unless you've looked into it before. What you're looking for is a sign that you're starting to hit a top. And we can see right here, I mean, you could look at it and say, okay, are there any candlestick patterns? If you're somebody that really likes to look at candlesticks, you can definitely tell by looking at those. But I'm more of a person that likes to look at these kind of indicators, so that's what I focus on. And if this is going down right here, and then especially if you plot another line, let's see if I can find one here. I suppose there's something right there. Let me make this a little bit thinner so it's easier to see. You can kind of see, I wouldn't call it a support line, but it was a line of resistance at one point, where these came up and hit. This one broke through, but it came back down. Same thing here. These didn't really come up and touch, but this one did. And then this one came back down and touched it and went back up. So it's kind of a line of support / resistance, or what you would call a support resistance flip, where it was support at one time and then it broke through it and became, or it was resistance at one time, it broke through it and came back down and became support. So once you saw this come down here, and especially right here, where it broke back through what I would call the very bullish line right here at the top, once this happened, you would probably want to consider selling at least a portion. And we wouldn't have known that, of course, if we were to, I do this sometimes where I'll do this and see what it would have looked like before this actually happened. See if I can delete that. And so before that even happened, we wouldn't have known. It was still above this line. But when it got to this point, we could at least start considering, because here's another trend line you can make actually right here. So see how that held that line all the way up? It was kind of like a triangle going up. It broke. It held support for a minute. But then when it came back through, it rejected hard. So on this candle close right here, that you had I wouldn't call it an engulfing red candle, but it's about 3/4. So that's a pretty strong move, or a pretty strong indicator that the sellers are coming back in. But these, I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you, this is really hard to catch. Selling at the top is a hard thing to do. And especially if you're a long investor, I mean, I'd really tell you just hang on, especially if you're playing it long. Okay, let me check chat here. Did you spot that inverted head and shoulders? Oh, right. Yeah, I was looking at that earlier. Yeah, so here and here, or here and here. Let me see what it shows on the daily. And not so much there, but it definitely shows something on the 4 hour. What does the 1 hour show? A lot of people are worried about this right now. They think this is a head and shoulder. But I don't really consider it all that scary. I mean, look right here. This is on the hourly. Here's your shoulder, here's your head. I mean, that's not much of a shoulder, but it kind of is. And I mean, you didn't even get back down to the neckline. Here's your neckline right here. So it's not even that scary. But some people see a shoulder there, head there, shoulder there. So it kind of remains to be seen. I mean, we see it down here too. Rejection. Let's see what it's doing here. Yeah, I mean, there's a little line there. There's a little resistance line. And then this line down here. Yeah, there's a little something there too. Yeah, it bounced off that. So we extended, we're coming back up. This will be pretty important right here, I would imagine, to see what it does here. If we reject off that, I mean, we don't know, really. We could say, yeah, I mean, this head and shoulders, it's going down, it'll go down to the neckline, could come down to here and then bounce back up. Or we could just keep on bouncing for a while in here. You know, there's nothing guaranteed there, of course. We'll just have to see what happens. But yeah, that's a good point, the inverted head and shoulders. Let's see, I thought there was another question. What are the red and blue lines? Check out the dominance. Let's see if I can bring that up. So that's BTC.D, I think on here, no. Let's do that in the other one. This I don't ever look at, really. I know Jay does a lot of comparisons with this, and that's good. We know that the fractal shows we're definitely going down at some point. So this is the daily. So we can see a little bit here and here. So it needs to hold this line, definitely. I mean, we can all see that. Here's another line on the RSI. Same thing here. I think one thing to look at is, do we see any bearishness in any of these indicators that would make us think it was about to fall back through this line? And you're not always going to find anything on a longer time frame. Sometimes you have to zoom in, but we could see something like this. I mean, this would make sense to me. So what do we have? We have 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, that would be really interesting to see that once it hit up here. Kind of made a mess of that. So once it comes up, hits that. This would be a very interesting area right here to see if it broke through. And we kind of already know that it's going to at some point. But that would be great for us if it did. You know, for altcoin holders. But we may just see something like this and then it just decides to go. It doesn't have to come back up here. Let's see what 4 hour shows. What I do is I go daily, then 4 hour, then hourly. And if I start to see things that are looking like a play I want to make, then I may even go down to 30 minute, 15 minute, 5 minute to find the best entry. And if you're, get back to this. If you're a long-term holder, that doesn't matter. Entries aren't near as important, but you always want to get the best when you can. Yeah, this is clearly, I mean, you can see that without even putting a line there. This price line right here, or not price, sorry. This level of 60.12, look how many times it's hit that. It hit it here. It hit it a couple of times here. So the more you hit that line, the weaker it becomes. So we'll just have to see. I mean, we could be breaking down right now on the dominance. I don't know. It's hard to tell. Let's just see what we have here real quick. Yeah, so here's a cool thing to look at. We can see in both of these, we're creating that triangle. And I just call these like decision points. The coin or whatever you're looking at has to make a decision soon. And it doesn't have to, go through the whole process here either. We've seen plenty of times where a coin might be testing resistance and then it'll come down and then it'll like go halfway up and go short, come down one more time, and then it just takes off. OMG, burst coins, they tend to do that. ZAP does it a lot. So yeah, that was a good idea. UTH, or no, it wasn't UTH, it was MIA. That's a good idea to look at dominance just to see what's going on. Of course, you always want to start with BTC, or if you're looking at the altcoin market cap, it would be better to look at a coin first, I think, to see where it stands, whichever one you're most interested in, because that's what affects it. And really BTC affects all of it. So you have to start with BTC no matter what you're looking at. Did y'all have any other questions? I mean, I'm happy to go over certain coins if you'd like. Like we can bring up ZAP. Look at the daily first. Yeah, RSI looks good. MACD turned up and it's kind of just curling up there a little bit. So we'll have to see what happens, but we're getting a rejection there on this line. So, it may just be coming down and then it's going to push back up. And sometimes you have these, let me see if there's something here. Yeah. So right across here, all the way across, there was another line. Actually, let me bring it over. You can see how it came down here, and it may just bounce right off this line and come up. There's a lot of different things you can look at. I mean, it's easy to remember or to forget that there's things like head and shoulders to look at because you're so busy looking at a line. So here's a possible head and shoulder here. Or, before you saw what kind of looks like an inverted head and shoulder there. So yeah, those things show up all the time, and that just gives you extra confidence. RSI, yeah, UTH is asking in the chat, how is RSI measured? It is measured based on moving averages. Or sorry, yeah, I was thinking MACD, sorry. RSI is measured based on the strength of the coin. Let me see what it uses here on the inputs. So it has a length of 14, that's like a 14-day EMA. And it's just checking on the relative strength of the coin itself. I don't know the definition exactly. I do know that anytime you're down here at the bottom, it's a good support area. Anytime you're here at the top, you want to think about selling. So in a way, it's kind of like support resistance in my mind. That's the way I view it. Trying to find a good example here. What I'd like to show you is a bullish divergence. Okay, this is a good one. So here you're going down, obviously. And probably to make this even better, let's just take this all the way to the right. And now look at this. Seems kind of odd, doesn't it, that the RSI would be climbing while the price of the actual coin is falling. So we're in a channel there on the RSI. Yeah, it's just doing its little bounce thing. And then as we progress, yeah, it did break out of it, but this was giving you a signal that the sellers were starting to weaken and you're getting more buy pressure. And you know, take this with a grain of salt. Not every person that does charting sees it the same way I do. Everybody knows about bullish and bearish divergence, but the way I'm explaining it may not be the same way somebody else explains it. It's just what makes sense in my mind. So I think that's probably pretty clear that it's a good example of how that works. I mean, just because we broke out of this doesn't mean anything. I mean, you were already down here at support. There's pretty low risk right here. And so even if it, you know, like right here, it kept coming down. I mean, you would have, what is that? How many percentage would you have lost if you would have entered back there? Well, yeah, I mean, that is a pretty good drop still because we're on a daily chart. So it still would have dropped about 30%. But you're not always going to be able to know that. I mean, right here, you would have thought, okay, well, you know, I got to start thinking about an entry. This thing's gaining momentum. So sometimes that happens. But the good news is that it was just flushing and then it consolidated and then it was ready to go back up. So it still would have been a good entry. I mean, you would have made, on the next move up, total, you would have made a 5x. So, I mean, you can't be mad about that. Let's see, let me catch up with chat. RSI, you said it was high earlier. What determines if it is high? Yeah, what determines that? You might not be able to see these numbers right here. So this top line is 70. It's just kind of a line to know whether it's reaching. Oh yeah, well, I mean, you're right. I didn't really explain that. So when it reaches a line like this at the top, which is right about the 70 range, you're starting to get into overbought territory. It's just a way to say it looks like we've got too many buyers now. The short sellers are going to start coming in because they see an opportunity. That's the way to look at everything. We're always looking at an opportunity to go long. Shorts are always looking at an opportunity to go short. And so once you get up into this range, you may see less buyers. And then that means that's an opportunity for people to make money on the short side. And just the opposite down here, this is 30. This is the 30 line basically. And that's kind of like, it's what I consider support area. And it would be where things are getting oversold. So you've got too many people selling off. They're going to start weakening. And then the buyers can step in and start pushing it back up. And just because it hits that line doesn't mean you're immediately going to pop up. I mean, you can see it kind of hung around this line. It even dipped back down and then it took off. But none of this means, like, look right here. This looks like, if you weren't looking at the coin, you would think, man, that thing must have took off. But no, it doesn't always mean that. I mean, that wasn't it wasn't a huge move. So really, when it gets over this line up here, that's when you see the big spikes. And the reason for that, we know, is because you get retail buyers coming in that don't know anything about charting. All they see is the green, and they jump in, and then they get caught here at the top. We've seen it countless times. Let's see. Agon. How's OMG doing? Okay, let me look at that one real quick. Yeah, UTH, that's true. It could show a potential reversal. And that's the reason for either looking at bullish or bearish divergence within these indicators. You can almost see it before it happens sometimes. It's not always going to work that way, but sometimes that would happen, and I'll show you a good example. Just because this was going up at the same time this was going up doesn't mean that it's going to continue. Because, I mean, these patterns are matching right here. Here's down, down, here's up, up. This back here, where we were looking at that other one, that's a much better example. I mean, these are pretty rare where you catch these divergences, but if you can find them, it'll help you plot out an entry or an exit much better. So it is good to look for them, just the same way it's good to look for a head and shoulders pattern or any other pattern. I mean, these things do show up every once in a while. So OMG, let's see where we're at on that. Oh yeah, this is looking real good on the daily. So as soon as I see this, if I see this curling back up, especially on a daily, and I'm thinking about a long-term position, this is definitely a coin to be looking at. And I'm already in OMG, and that's just my choice. You know, I don't tell anybody to get in any coin. I just present the facts that I see and let them make their own decision. Here's a little trend line on the RSI that you can plot and see if it holds this line. We're kind of in a channel right here. Something like that. And it's widening, so that's a good sign. Whenever I see a widening channel, I mean, I usually, you can kind of look at it this way. If you see a widening channel where the mouth is getting bigger than what it was back here, then this up here is giving it more room to breathe. That's the way I view it. Otherwise, if you were just to say, okay, well, this is all you're going to get out of me. This is your resistance line. This is as far as you can go. You know, but with this here, it extends and keeps going, and it's widening, so it gives you more room. Not saying it's going to work out that way, but it's a better sign than just having a resistance line sitting there saying, no, you can't go past here. Do not pass go, do not collect $200. All right, what else do we see? Yeah, there's all kinds of resistance lines here that you can find. I mean, I would say if you're practicing, or if you already know what you're doing, just find as many of these points. You just want to find points where it's hitting and rejecting, and points where it's coming back down to test it multiple times. So those places are where you want to put your lines. See how this one here touched it multiple times, came up, got rejected, finally got over it, and it turned into support. So this is exactly what I call a support resistance flip. It went from resistance, which right here is resistance, came down, finally broke it. Now it's support. So I just call it an SR flip. That's just, some people use that terminology, support resistance flip. So what else we got? Usually from here I'll go down to 4 hour. And this is nothing to be concerned about right here. Some people see it getting close to this line and get concerned and think about getting out. I definitely wouldn't be getting out right here. I mean, look at all the indicators you're showing. We just broke over the MACD 0 line, which is very bullish, and we're still curling up right here. I mean, the break of that line is where you want to be in, really. So being in before this line is a good thing, because look at this right here. Here's pretty solid resistance. Let me bring this over, because like I said, you always want to look left. We want to create a line here that gets touched as many times as possible. Yeah, there we go, right there. So see how we were just talking about it. I mean, yeah, it broke over there, but it didn't stay. I mean, we can tell these wicks are touching this line many times right here, all through here. And then this one came down and touched it here to retest before it went back up. And a lot of times this will happen, just so you know. this is actually a very good sign usually. If you get a coin that breaks through your resistance and then it comes back down quickly and touches support, instead of waiting till way back here, you know, like a week later, and then it finally comes back down to test it. But still, I mean, that's great. You know, if you were able to make that play right there, that's a good profit. I think we talked about this earlier too. These patterns like this is a good thing to watch for. The descending wedge. And the reason it's called a descending wedge is because, number one, it's going down, of course, but also the mouth is constricting. So it's getting smaller and smaller. It's a wedge instead of a triangle. And then you get a break out of it. This is a good play. A lot of people make this play. They don't mess around with this support area here because it could go down further. What they do is, to be safe, change the color here so you can see that arrow. To be safe, they wait for this break. And you really want to wait for one more candle, usually, to close. I mean, if you get a really big green candle like that that's engulfing, it's not really engulfing anything, but it's a big full candle anyway, then you can be pretty sure that we're going to go up. But there's a lot of different things you can do, like, you know, draw more trend lines, find your support. Right here, there's your support. It didn't really come back down to touch it, but it may have, what is this, 4 hour? It may have come down and touched it during this 4 hour candle right here. And one way you can find out is to go to the 1 hour. Let me see if my trend lines stay, yeah. All right, we broke through. So here's our support. We closed, and then it came down. At some point during this 1 hour candle, it came back down to touch support, so that's good. And if you really wanted to verify, you could go down even further. 30-minute, 15-minute. I mean, the further down you get, you'll start seeing some red candles that you didn't notice before in the longer time frames. So yeah, I mean, that's some of the basics there. I'm trying to think if there's anything I didn't cover. Let me go back to this one real quick. Oh yeah, I kind of wanted to talk about this some more. I'm really interested in this indicator, Wolfpack. Let me get rid of this. I want to look at a different coin with this. Is there anyone that somebody wants to look at besides OMG? Anybody have a request to look at one of their coins in the chat? Okay, we'll look at Algo for UTH. Okay, what are we looking at? 1 hour. Get rid of these EMA. Can y'all hear the music okay? I just wanted to kind of have a little background noise to fill in the silence. Okay, good. It's not too loud or anything. I just want to make sure. Okay, good. All right, let's get rid of RSI and MACD. Maybe we can see this stuff better. Bring this one up. I'm still wanting to make sure I understand exactly what this indicator is, but I'm almost positive it's a positive and negative money flow. I saw it on a guy's YouTube earlier, and let me give you his name just in case you want to look at his. If I can find it again. Yeah, here it is. So this guy right here, what is his name? I always want to give people credit, you know, because he put a lot of time in this, I'm sure. So his name is Jason Casper, and he talks about Market Cipher in it, that the thing that CryptoFace came up with. It's a paid subscription type thing. But he talks about this Wolfpack thing in here. You can see he has it here on his deal. And what I'll do is I'll just link it in case y'all want to watch his video too. Let me get back here to the chat. Okay, so there's the link to that, just in case y'all want to look to see what he had to say about it. I think it has a lot of promise. What I want to do is find a good example here. Because really what I'm looking for, just so you know, is I want to draw a trend line where I can find the negative money flow, which of course is in the red. We'll just call this our zero line, and it is a zero line. It actually says that here. Anything above it is green. You got positive money flow coming in. Anything below, money is leaving the coin. So if you can draw this trend line here, then you can be pretty sure that the sellers are starting to weaken on a longer time frame. I mean, this is many, many hours here. I don't know how many that is. From here to there. Oh, that's 10 days. Yes, yeah, so that's a long time. But this is good for a long-term entry if you want to make one. One thing that immediately grabs my attention is these are real small ones here. Real small. And then look at the volatility here. I get the feeling that's kind of what you're looking for. Because you would basically say, okay, this is consolidation. Let me take some of this off. All of these smaller ones are what we would call consolidation, where it may have come down a long way. Well, it didn't really. Anyway, people are buying and selling a lot in here, and you may have institutional investors that they're just waiting for it to hit a certain point, and then they're buying some more, and they're waiting a little while buying some more. They don't buy everything all at once, of course. So that's interesting. I mean, I like that. And this is probably one of the indicators I'm going to start adding. You really want to see this volatility right here. That traders always want volatility. I'm just looking for some more examples here. It'd be nice to see one that we can use currently. Yeah, I mean, there's something there for sure on the 4 hour. You're getting a really aggressive money flow that's going back positive, it would seem to me, even though the chart's not showing it necessarily. So you got this really aggressive dip right here. And I guess you could call this, I don't know if you'd really want to put a resistance line on any of this, but I mean, it may end up working out like this. Who knows? We may just come down here, test it one more time, and kind of bounce. But you know, you see that back here, where it just kind of stayed right near the line, and then eventually it took off. So we're staying real close to the line here. And this is coming back. I mean, might be a really good play. Let's see what else we see though, up here especially. So there's your resistance, your local resistance is what we would call this, the more recent. And something about right in there would be your support. Just kind of hanging around in a channel where buyers and sellers are equal. Nothing really stands out on this time frame. Yeah. I don't know if you could call that a break and retest or not. It might be. I mean, we may just take off from here because you can see a lot of these wicks right here. We're just gonna have to see what happens with it, but we can always go down one more, down to the hourly, see what's happening here. Yeah, there's a support line there for sure. Like right in there. And then, so the good thing, by the way, of coming down to a smaller time frame is you start seeing some patterns forming. You'll see really good charters all the time on their videos where you'll have these triangles drawn on the really small fractals. You know, these really much smaller fractals. They'll start drawing triangles, trying to find some kind of pattern so that they can time a move or see where it's going. Typically, this type of pattern, it's generally going to push it down because you're getting a lot of upward resistance here. You know, it keeps hitting that, but it doesn't always happen that way. I mean, you may get an exit out of it and it could just burst because it's really constricting itself here, almost like a spring. It's all going to come down to whether this support holds right here. It's really strong support though. I mean, you can see this thing goes way back right here. You know, you can see many times it hit coming up, coming down. Funny thing is, this looks a lot like OMG. OMG had the same type of pattern back here where it was acting as support. Let me see what else I can find. I think another thing we need to look at for sure is RSI. So here's our line there. Yeah, we're kind of doing a triangle right now. A lot of these we're seeing it a lot where they're trying to decide which way they want to go. Wow, look at that. This money flow indicator is really getting tight. Whichever way it goes, it's going to go hard. I don't think there's any doubt about that. So maybe just wait for the break. You know, wait for this this resistance. Well, you could wait for this break here for sure. Like say, just wait to see if it breaks out of that and comes over. And another play is wait till it comes down to retest and then goes back up. That's the safer entry. But sometimes you miss a bigger move too. So it really just depends on what kind of risk you want to take on it. So what else we got? Anybody got another one they want to look at? Let's see, we looked at ZAP, we looked at OMG, that was ALGO, XRP, that's always a real popular one. Love to hate. Yeah, it's basically the same thing as ALGO. There's nothing to see because it's creating a triangle. Same there. Daily looks real good though. Look at that right there where the money flow is coming back in. But it just seems like everything's creating a triangle right now. Here's a bigger triangle. I mean, these just show up all over the place when you're looking at these charts. It's just a waiting game, but at least this right here on XRP is following that support. So that's really good. It's just kind of hugging that line on the way up. BNT. Let's see what we got. Oh yeah, BNT. That's one of the coins I really wish I would have stayed in. You can see it just such a steady coin. I mean, you could almost just set it and forget it on this one. It's one of the most, well, I don't want to call it a stable coin, but it's one of the most dependable coins that you could have been in from the beginning. Look at 4 hour. Yeah, this is real good. This is a great example of a coin that stayed above the 70 line, you know, into the what's basically the overbought area. But like we were talking about before, that doesn't mean that it has to come back down. It may come down for a little bit, but you know, if it's a strong coin, it's going to come back up and keep pushing, especially in a bull market. And it's really interesting about this one. I don't know if there's a lot of investors in it, like big institutional investors or what, where if you think in a macro perspective, there might be a lot of people holding on to it and they're just not willing to sell. And so any new people that come in, it just keeps pushing it up further, and there's not much of a rest for it, like this right here. You know, it barely had any time at all that it spent under this line. A lot of positive money flow from the very beginning. Yeah, it's a great coin. I mean, as far as whether to get out of it, it's tough to say. You can see something there where it is hitting some resist for sure. My guess is you would have been able to see the same thing back here. Something like that. Yeah. So there and there. Came up. Yeah, maybe it'll do the same pattern. I mean, I can't say that for sure, of course, but it's somewhat similar anyway. It's just a really strong coin. What are we at? 835. What's it done since March? Let me go back to the daily. I think this may be one of those that you can't see. Yeah, we got to go to the other one. So like I was saying before, there's some of these on TradingView. It doesn't show the full history of the coin, depending on what exchange you're looking at. But if we're talking about from March, 55x, is that right? Yeah, 5,600%. It's a solid coin for sure. Well, I guess that's about it, guys. I just wanted to, I really don't like to spend a lot of time because I know people are busy, and I want to try to stay to the point as much as I can. But I would appreciate if y'all would hit the follow button here on Twitch. And of course, if you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe and the notification button. And then that way, when I go live or when I post a video, you'll get that. And I'll keep y'all updated on Twitch and stuff like that too, and in our group chat. That way, you know, who knows, you might be able to get some more info from what I have to show. You know, we've all got individual knowledge that may help one another. You just never know. But I appreciate y'all joining me, and we'll see y'all next time.